Alright guys, we are replacing and repairing this motor today. It's a 6.2 liter LS. It's a 2017 Yukon. It has a collapsed lifter on the second cylinder over here on this bank. We pulled off the valve cover and made sure that the rocker arm was not moving. It has that P0300, I think, is the code number for it. But yeah, it has a dead cylinder from this AFM system. So here's what we got for parts. I went to the dealership to get the lifters. Okay, there's 4 AFM ones and there's 4 normal ones. I believe these are the normal ones, the smaller boxes. I got some push rods, okay, just in case we bent any. I got a head gasket from the dealership, or stealership as I should say. I got some head bolts. This stuff is from AutoZone. Oil for it, oil filter. We're doing oil change at the end, some coolant to top it off. I also got these lifter trays, the guides for it. It's always good to replace those while you're in there. So we're gonna basically just tear apart this side of the head, this bank, and go from there. So I'll show you the process. All right, first thing we're gonna do is take off this intake. I may take off this alternator. It's kind of in the way of the head, and it looks like only 2 bolts, like in a clip. So we'll just take off this belt and the alternator to get out of our way, and then the intake, all the hoses around it, and then we'll be able to take this valve cover off and all that stuff. Guys, here we are. We got the intake off. What else? Obviously the alternator and the belt we took off. Now this bracket, as you can see, this bolt actually goes into the cylinder head. So I was wanting to take it off, but then I looked down further down and the whole bracket goes all the way down there. It goes to the AC compressor, everything. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to take the head off without taking this bracket off. I did have to loosen and pull out this one bolt because that also goes into the head. So the alternator bolts that bolt so that the head isn't attached to this bracket, but I'm gonna try to leave the bracket here. We'll see how it goes, I'm not sure. Anyway, we got this fuel rail, this back nut off that goes to this fuel rail. We have all the clips off the injectors off and the wiring harness. I took these little Velcro straps and moved the whole fuel injector wiring harness off to the side. What else? I'm about to take off this valve cover, and we obviously have to take off the exhaust manifold bolts at some point. What else, guys? And then we'll take off the rocker arms, get the push rods out, and then we can take the head bolts off. I'm sure there'll be a ground on the cylinder head and the back side maybe. So just be careful, pay attention to the details. Yeah, let's keep going. I'm taking off these rocker arms, and look what we pulled out of the cylinder that had a collapsed lifter. Bent push rod. That is rocker arm number 3, which is cylinder, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the intake stroke. Anyway, there's our bent push rod. Glad we got some new ones. The rocker arm looks good, but we're gonna keep going with these ones. Take them all off, they should be good. But obviously that was your dead cylinder. All right guys, here's where we're at. We got the exhaust off. I did take the heat shield off so I could get that back exhaust bolt. I did find that someone had an exhaust bolt broken in here. The head was barely hanging on. I literally turned it out by hand and it was broken. Actually, let me show you. But someone left it there, so we're gonna have to clean that up. The stud is still in the head. Someone left it like that. You can see it's rusted on the bottom, so it's been there for a while. That was not me. So anyway, the rest came out good and easy. There is enough room to leave the header in the car, and it's pretty flexible. You could use a pry bar and just pry it out the way when you get these bottom head bolts off. But here's my first one for the head bolts. Now you want to take it evenly and start in the middle and work your way out and take it evenly off just to prevent warpage. I've heard that anyway. I don't even know if that's fully true. But anyway, take those head bolts off. Oh yeah, there's a ground strap on the back of the cylinder head. I think it's 13 millimeter. I haven't taken it off yet. And then these head bolts, and we'll pull the cylinder head off. Guys, we just got this cylinder head off. Remember where that bent push rod came from? Can you guess where? There's that lifter. Cylinder head is off. Okay, I want to show you a cool trick that I did with the exhaust. I've never done it before. I was having a hard time with these head bolts that were up against the exhaust. Well, look what I did. Well, you can't really maybe see it, but there's actually a ratchet strap. I made a mess on the ground, but there's a ratchet strap right there from the exhaust manifold to around the frame, and it pulled back the exhaust manifold several inches. I would say 2-3 inches. enough to get these head bolts off. So we're gonna take this head gasket off, clean everything up, take out these trays. We are replacing these trays. We're replacing all these lifters. We're replacing the push rods. So let's go ahead and clean all this up, take everything out, and we can start to rebuild from there. Here's that stud that was broken in the exhaust. I'm gonna use my vice grips and try to get it out. And we'll have to go run and pick up a new bolt for that exhaust. Guys, it took a while, but everything is prepped. I cleaned out all of, well, I scraped the cylinder head with a razor blade. I cleaned out all of the head bolt holes, blew them out, got all the coolant out of there, and scraped the head, wiped it down. Let's see, where is it? My cylinder head over here where I had to drill out that stud. I did the same thing. I scraped the bottom of it, wiped it down, and now we're gonna put these lifter trays in with the new lifters. So here are my new lifter trays. Obviously they look just like those pieces. And then my lifters are soaking in some oil. You wanna soak in there so that obviously there's oil all around that plunger that's internal. Just soak them for a little bit. I'm gonna set them up in the trays and then set them down in these buckets right here for them, and go ahead and torque these bolts, and then we can put our head gasket on with the dowel pins and put the cylinder head on. All right guys, we got these lifter guides in. Those bolts you reuse, they're shoulder bolts from GM. You torque those to 8 or 9 foot-pounds around there. Again, wipe down the block surface one more time and then put this gasket on. I did install my my dowel pins lightly with a hammer and make sure they're fully seated. There's one there, one there. Those are very important. The gasket may want to come up a little bit when you put the head on. It'll obviously go down. So anyway, that's where we're at with it. Let's wipe down the cylinder head and put it back on. All right guys, we're gonna do the torque spec on these head bolts. We got them all bottomed out by hand tight, and it goes like this. This is bolt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Simple middle to out cross pattern to do these torque sequence. So the first pass is 59 foot-pounds for all of them, and then you come back and you do 90 degrees, and then you come back on a third pass and do 60 degrees. And I just use a Sharpie and I face it towards the 12 o'clock position, and I use that to tell how many degrees I'm turning for each pass, and that will complete it. I've never had a problem with that. It's not really proper. A lot of guys will have an angle torque wrench, but you know what? Never had a problem with it. So we're gonna do the Sharpie today. So go ahead and get your 15 millimeter and do the first pass, 59 foot-pounds. All right guys, I just torqued them all 3 passes. You can see my mark, how it's at the 5 o'clock position. That's because I made my mark starting at the 12 o'clock. So 3 o'clock is 90 degrees. And then if you went all the way to 6 o'clock, that would be 180 degrees, but we're only doing 150 total. So you go to 5 o'clock, and that's where all my markings are. Generally anyway, 5 o'clock, 435. So those are your torque specs. Make sure to get all, see, look how much room the exhaust had I was telling you about earlier. Okay, so let's get these rocker arms in there. Get the fuel rail set back up, all of those things, exhaust back on, and then the intake, and we're really gonna just fly from here. All right guys, it is the first start. I did the oil change. I got the coolant open because we're gonna have to top it off, but I topped it off to what we can, but it'll drink a little more. So I did that oil change, primed the fuel system, started right up. I don't have any codes right now. TPMS light, that's it. Oil pressure at 40. Everything looks good. My coolant temp is rising. Let's see, engine control module. I don't have any codes for the engine control module. We're gonna keep letting it idle and warm up, and we'll go for a run. Not bad.